بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. Indeed, all praises due to Allah. We praise Him, seek His aid and ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of ourselves and from the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide. And whomsoever Allah misguides, none can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except for Allah alone, having no partner. And I bear witness that Muhammad is a slave and his messenger. To proceed. Verily the best of talks beyond any doubt is the book of Allah, and the best of guidance is the guidance of the messenger Muhammad. May peace and blessings be upon him. And verily the most evil of all matters are the ones innovated. For every newly innovated matter is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance will lead to the hellfire. As has been announced that tonight, inshallah, it will be the first class regarding the book Sifat Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And before I make a start, we have to make an introduction. The introduction would be as follows. Number one, the book itself, and what is the version that you need to bring along with you in order to maximize the benefit that you could gain. And number two, also we're going to be talking about just a short biography about the author himself. And number three, we will be talking about as well an introduction to the book itself, as means the book, the author himself, he made before he started the prayer a very important points regarding the methodology that we, inshallah, seek to be upon, the methodology of the Salaf. May Allah be pleased with them, the methodology of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum wa ardahum. So, if I go ahead and start, first of all, I would say that my original book, which is Sifat Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which myself I studied with my shuyukh, I don't have it with me, and that is why I'm depending upon the computers, and inshallah it will help, but I have asked for that book, inshallah, to be shipped for me, where my notes, which are very precious notes, because usually it is the case whenever I teach a book, I do have my own book. But anyway, inshallah, nevertheless, we will be doing a proper study. But the brothers who are in the administration, they were keen to say that we don't want to go deep details. That is, we don't want to as well to bore some of the people who are maybe starters. And at the same time, we don't want to do it just like a straightforward points without mentioning some of the proofs. So it will be suitable, inshallah, for the starters and also for those students of knowledge. The book that we have decided to bring to the bookshop is this book, which is the Prophet Prayer Described. Now, this book being translated by a person, we ask for him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, to return him to the deen. Because the person who had translated the book, actually, at the moment, he is not upon what the book says. That is, could she say that the least I could say. I know the person in person, and I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bring him to the deen, because he's gone far, far. I'm not going to say more than that. So, but the translation is very good, so good that you could hardly find a mistake. And also he had done what is needed to do or to be done. Like, for example, you have the main sentences, and then underneath the footnotes, all of that, he's done that, and also he had made it very easy for the reader. But even though that the book can be easily read, it needs a teacher to be as well go along with it in order to explain some of those things which are not explained. So the book itself, before I start with the author, it has an original book which is not being translated yet. which is called Aslu Sifat Salah. Aslu Sifat Salah, the origin where the book has been taken from. And the origin that where the book is being taken from, the Shaykh Rahimahullah had written that book. Okay, I don't know, even maybe before our uncle was born. When were you born, uncle? 1942. Can we translate that into Hijri dates, please? So if we're 1940, how many years are you, uncle, at the moment? 73. Okay. Now this book was made by the Shaykh Al-Albani. Okay, and I'm now at the moment I'm saying it is going to be 71 years ago. 71 years ago. Because 1366, if you add 71, you're going to end up with 1437, I think. When the Shaykh Rahimahullah made his book, which is Aslu Sifat al-Salah, it's about triple the size of this, or more. And the Shaykh, he made it straight after he was teaching a class in the Targhib wa Tarhib, in which he had been reading a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ and explaining them regarding the prayer and how important is the prayer. One of those hadith says, the person would pray the prayer, yet nothing would be recorded for him except for, and he started half, then he went down quarter, then he went down third, fourth, 1/5, fifth, sixth, until he went to the 10th. And then after that, nothing would be recorded for him. So the Shaykh said that let's just go ahead, make sure that we master as much as we can the prayer of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in order to get the maximum reward. And remember, Prophet Allah started with the half. So if you got the half, you've done very well. If you got the half of that, you've done very well. So if you've done more than the half, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah. So let's just try to imitate our Messenger ﷺ in his prayer. So the first book was done by Shaykh Al-Albani Rahimahullah, is Aslu Sifat al-Salah, which is the original of this book, where this book been taken from. And this book, it hasn't got all the detailed checkings of the ahadith as in the Asl. So this one is being taken from that one. So the Asl was done by the Shaykh Rahimahullah in the year 300 or 1366, and the Shaykh at that time, he was 33 years old when he finished writing that book. And that book, I will tell you, it was a revolutionary book. And I mean the word, a revolutionary book. Because when the book was made, it was made in a time where the people, most of them, are strictly following a particular madhab, a particular path. Like the Hanafis will not tolerate for their followers to be Shafi'is, and vice versa. And the people, they were taught that is, if you are on a madhab, you cannot change your madhab. It's like your religion. Basically, if you're Hanafi, if you turn to Shafi'i, you committed apostasy. At that time, following and blind following and being, I would say, fanatic is the mainstream at that time. So for a book to blast all of this and to destroy it and to come up with a book which is not depending upon any madhab, but the source, which is the book and the sunnah, that's a revolutionary book. And that's why the Shaykh Al-Albani Rahimahullah, at the end of his introduction, which we'll be talking about, inshallah, the Shaykh, he says that, I know I'm not throwing a bomb here. And I know lots of people will be criticizing and talking a lot, but nevertheless, never mind, because if my aim is to make the sunnah available in the hands of the people with an easy way, then this is what I'm intending to do. And this book, as I said, it is a collective information of what is in the books, which are volumes and volumes. So if you read one of them, as soon as you read about 2-3 pages, you get a headache and you stop reading. So this one is the cream of the crop. So the asl of that, the original of that, which is made 300 or 1366, the Shaykh had written it. The Shaykh did not print it, the asl. Actually, he only printed out of the asl this book. Anybody got the Arabic version amongst you, please? Anybody got the Arabic version? This is a copy of the Arabic version. Okay, this is not an authentic copy. The copy, but so this is well, I would say the original copy is a bit longer than that. Okay, higher than this, and the page of it is exactly the same here. This is the Arabic version. So this is not the asl. Remember, this has been taken from the asl. The asl is much more than that. The asl is actually, you will find in the footnotes more explanation, detailed tracing of the hadith itself. And the asl, it was not printed at the time of the Prophet of Allah. It was printed in 1424 after the death of Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah. So the first book which was made by the Shaykh, it was the last and the latest to be printed. Okay? So if you take the asl, then that asl will include what? This book in it. So the asl will include this book in it. But the ones who, Jazahumullahu khairan, who printed the asl, they know that this one was renewed number of times by the Shaykh. So the Shaykh had added things to it. But he did not add that to the what? To the original, to the asl. So when they printed the asl, they had added the additions of what Shaykh had done in this into that. And this book has been translated in so many languages, I can't remember how many. More than 10 languages. More than the 10 languages. I remember 20 years ago with the Shaykh, it was more than 10 languages. Okay, so it's a lot of languages, plus how many millions of copies, Allah Ta'ala a'lam. And now the counter of the Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, every person who learns from this, he gets a hasanah from that. This book, كتب الله له القبول. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordained for it to be accepted by the people. And the people likes it and relax to it. And that, as I said, this is from the asl. But the asl was printed later on, 1424. Whereas this one, printed, Shaykh Al-Albani made an introduction for this, 1381. Which makes it about 15 years after he made the asl. He made this from the asl. Okay, and printed out. And you have here in this one, it says here the introduction of the new print. And there are other introductions as well in the book. So for example, if I flick to the page number 27, it says here the introduction of the 10th print. Because there were so many print, they can't count, so this is the latest print. They didn't say 11, 12, 13. Because every time the Shaykh makes a new print, then he will add things, make sure that these things are being clarified, especially if other people talks about something or refute something, the Shaykh would emphasize it. So the book, the latest one of that, is bigger than the first copy. But the asl, much bigger than this. The asl has been, as I said, printed 1424. Now, if you have the asl, still you haven't got everything. Because the Shaykh rahimahullah, later on, an idea has been given to him to make talkhis, sifat salat al-nabi. So the third one now, which is the concise of sifat salat al-nabi. So we have the origin, which is the big one. We have this one, which is, this one took the matan, took the main core, the main theme of that book, and left the more details of checking of the hadith. And then the last one, which is the what? The concise. The concise, now, it actually taken away all the proofs and just made what is you need to do in the salah. But there is something there in the talkhis which the Shaykh had added. It is not in the asl nor in this. Did you understand what I'm saying? So there is in the talkhis, in the concise, the Shaykh has done something which is not being added to the origin. Even the ones who had made the Asr 1424, when they finished, they had the talkhis and they said we couldn't add the talkhis after we have done what we have done and finished. It would have been really nicer if they had added the talkhis. What the talkhis had done actually is added a few points, which is that, what is this? Is it shart? Is it rukn? Or is it wajib? Is it shart? Is it rukn? Or is it wajib? And that is important. Or is it sunnah? Mandub ilayh, that is recommended. Is it condition? Is it a pillar? Or is it just obligatory? Obligatory has three things. Obligatory underneath it, like three things. One, which is a condition. Two is a pillar. Third one, just obligatory. All of them are compulsory. But there is a difference between the first two things, which are shart and pillar, that if you have missed a shart or if you missed a pillar in the prayer, your prayer will be invalid. Whereas if you've missed something which is obligatory in the prayer, it will not jeopardize your prayer. So I'll give you, for example, from the shart of the salah is the wudu. From the shart of the salah, to face the qibla. Because shart means condition, prerequisite. That is, prerequisite which is not part of the prayer. The prayer starts with the takbir al-ihram, ends with the taslim. Facing the qibla has nothing to do with inside the prayer. The intention itself has nothing to do with inside the prayer. Making the wudu is nothing to do with inside of the prayer. Those are called prerequisite. If you miss one of these, then your prayer will be invalid. The rukn is the pillar which is part of the act itself, and if you miss it as well, again the same consequence, that is, your prayer will be invalid, like ruku', sujood. Those are pillars. If you don't make ruku', your prayer will be invalid. So, the other one, which we call it wajib. It is compulsory, or fard, and there is no difference between the fard and the wajib. As we're going to be inshallah detailing, I'm just telling you an example. That fard or that wajib, which is not a pillar and it's not a condition, if you have missed it, it will not jeopardize your prayer. For example, saying Bismillah when you make your wudu. Saying Bismillah when you make the wudu, it's compulsory in the wudu, but it is not a pillar. Because if you made it a pillar or you made it a condition, I would say to you that maybe so many people who are here in this masjid had invalid wudu, which resulted in invalid prayer. So many people make the wudu and they forget what? To say Bismillah. This is common. So if you made it a shart, if you made it a pillar, then your wudu is invalid and makes your prayer invalid. So this is an introduction regarding the book. So we have now 3 books. Al-Asl, and this one, and then the Talkhis, which is the concise. The Asl is the one that the Sheikh had made at the beginning. He finished it 1366 when he was 33 years old, more than 70 years ago. And this book was printed the latest one, 1424. And the second one, which the Sheikh had made, and he took only the text from it as well. He took the proofs, but he did not go in details about the hadith knowledge, science of the knowledge of the hadith. He did not do that, and he left it. So he took that, so for the Sheikh, to make it easy for the people. Then after that, he made, because of an idea being given to him, to make a concise. Because some people, they don't want to go in the details of the proofs. They want to go just, what should I do? How should I raise up my hands? How do I want to do? So that's called talkhis. But in that talkhis, the Shaykh, rahimahullah, as I said, he had made something which is very good. That is, as I said, he made the pillar and prerequisite, and he made the obligatory added to those things. So if I read, for example, the Shaykh Al-Albani's rahimahullah's talkhis, which is not in your book, talkhis, the talkhis introduction is not in your book. The Shaykh rahimahullah, he says, after he had made khutbat al-hajah, he said, because it was a Mubarak suggestion, that is, somebody told me to do this, and actually it was going into my mind for a long time, to make a concise of the book, to make it easy for those ones who want to just to know how to do their prayer. And in this book, I've added, that is, I made more subtitles to make it easy in the concise, and also I made the subtitles to have as well underneath titles, subtitles, and in each one of those issues I would say whether it is rukn or wajib or whether it's shart. And if I didn't say anything regarding that issue, that means either it is recommended or maybe it is in the balance whether it's going to be wajib or there's a difference among the scholars, which is not what I intended from that book, to go in detail to this, check this, and to make it up, because it's a concise. I don't want to go into the details of whether it is this right or correct. So if I left it, that means it is like a difference among the scholars, he says the Shaykh. And if I said it's rukn or wajib, if I left it, that means it's either a difference or it could be a sunnah. And then he goes on to give a definition to the rukn. The rukn, he says, that is the act which the prayer that will be, it has to have it, otherwise it will be invalid. Like for example, he says the ruku'. For verily, a ruku' is a rukn. As the second one is the shart. Shart is like, and by the way, for those who have back problems, you could go to the wall. I don't mind for you to take chairs. So I don't mind for the brothers to sit on chairs like these. Brothers, mashallah, sitting on chairs. Uncle as well, sitting on a chair. Even if you are a young person, you feel like you've got a back problem, sit on a chair. Okay? So that is, alhamdulillah, for me, I don't mind, inshallah. If you want to sit on a chair on a table at the back as well, give a lecture from your home. This is open for you. A shart is like the pillar, the prerequisite, but it is not part of the act, like the wudu, he says. For verily the salah will not be valid without a wudu. And the wajib, which is being confirmed, that is a command by the book and the sunnah, but there is no proof to be a pillar or a prerequisite. The person, if he does it, he will be rewarded, and if he doesn't do it, he will be sinned and he will be punished, except if he has an excuse. And he says, the wajib is the fard, and there is no one, or there's no proof to differentiate between them. And this is what the Hanafis, they do, the fard and the wajib. For example, they say, the fard is higher than the wajib. There's no proof. Fard is wajib. And they give an example, for example, the Fatiha. The Fatiha in the prayer for the Ahnaf, Hanafi madhab, is not fard, it is wajib. So if you did not recite the Fatiha in your prayer, you will be sin, but your prayer is valid. For us, the Fatiha is what? Pillar. If you don't do it, prayer is invalid. As Sunnah, he says, what the Prophet ﷺ consistently will be doing from the ibadah, almost of the time. He did not command to do it as a command which is compulsion. So the person who does it, he will be rewarded, and the person who does not do it, he will not be reproached or he will not be punished. As for the hadith, which the people and some of those muqallidah, blind followers, attribute to the Prophet of Allah, Man taraka sunnati lam tanalhu shafa'ati, who abandons my sunnah, then he will not gain my intercession. This hadith has no foundation, has no asl. That means it's been said by the Prophet of Allah. And whatever is like this, we cannot attribute it to the Messenger of Allah, otherwise we will be lying upon him or against him. The Prophet of Allah, he said, he will say something which I did not say, then let him prepare his seat in the hellfire. And then he says, that is because I always emphasize, I am not really abiding myself to one madhab from the four main madhabs that the people follow, but actually our madhab is the madhab of Ahl al-Hadith. Madhab of Ahl al-Hadith is that they will abide themselves to take whatever has been confirmed to be from the Prophet ﷺ, and this is the strongest methodology and madhab, as even those who are being labeled to be Hanafis or others, they have testified to the fact. And he mentions here Al-Allama Abu Hasanat Al-Laknawi Al-Hanafi, who had said, how is it that these people, we cannot regard the people of Hadith, that these are the people we should follow? They are the inheritors of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Truly they are the inheritors. And they are the ones who are the MPs on his behalf. That is to say that what is he said. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us with them and to make us to die on their love and on their biography. Imam Ahmad, he said, Deen al-Nabi Muhammad akhbar. The deen of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is akhbar. Ni'ma al-matiyah lil-fata athar. Okay, we would like just to remind the brothers to switch off their mobiles. This has happened twice, again. And I would like as well for you as a request, I know some of the people that can't do that, but maybe you could give it to a younger kid of yours, he will do it. That is to change the ringtone into a normal ring, because music is not allowed. To have a music here in the masjid, in the house of Allah Azza wa Jal, it's not allowed. So we do know that some people would leave their phone unintentionally on. It's no problem. But don't make it music. So brothers, now, grab your phone, make sure it's music, put it off. Can't have music here. Okay, we don't want to have music in the masjid. This is the Prophet ﷺ, this is the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ told us not to turn our masajid into markets. Now we're going to turn them into what? A'udhu billah. So please make sure that your phone ring is normal ring. Or you could have even one of those sounds of animals if you wish. Like a cockroach or, I don't know. Some people got cockroaches. Or a frog if you want. No problem, inshallah. No. Right, let's just go now to the third issue before we start, which is short biography about the Imam. Because the Shaykh, we have discussed his biography, if you remember, in one of the classes. But I'll just give you a short biography of the Shaykh, rahimahullah. And when we mention those people, rahimahumullah, we always remember what Sufyan ibn Uyayna, he said, عند ذكر الصالحين تنزل الرحمة. When we mention the people who are righteous, the rahmah, the mercy, will be sent down. That is why, sorry. When we mention the Salihin, the righteous one, the mercy comes down. Because the angels are with us, and the angels will give us as well what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given us, which is the mercy, and the forgiveness as well. So all the time that when you mention those people who are righteous, you hope for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. Al-Allama Shaykh rahimahullah Muhammad Nasir ad-Din Al-Albani, one of the great scholars of the Muslims in this era, I could say in the last 70, 80 years, and he is from the great scholars who are unique in the ilm, the knowledge of science of hadith, and he is hujjah, a proof in his, they consider him as a hujjah, and qala al-shaykh, and that is why you find so many books. When you go to the footnotes, صححه الشيخ Al-Albani, ضعفه الشيخ Al-Albani, is being checked to be authentic by Shaykh Al-Albani, is being checked to be unauthentic by the Shaykh Al-Albani. So he became a hujjah, and that is why the Haramain in Saudi Arabia decided to give the Shaykh this huge task, which is to make the books of the Sunnah, which we're talking about Sunan Abi Dawood, Sunan Al-Nasa'i, and Sunan Al-Tirmidhi, and Sunan Ibn Majah, the four Sunan, to make them to be checked by the Shaykh rahimahullah. So the Shaykh, he made a book called Sahih, Sunan Al-Tirmidhi, Sahih, Sunan Abi Dawud, Sahih, the authentic, and the Da'if, which is unauthentic. Amazing. The Shaykh rahimahullah spent more than half of his age just to do that for us, and we are taking the cream of the crop from the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi. And that is why some of the scholars had said that he had returned for us the age of those people like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahmatullahi alayhi and Ibn Kathir. And some of them even said he is a tabi'i, one of the followers, but he came later. Tabi'i who came later. Tabi'i came on at the beginning. We can't say a companion, of course, but he's a tabi'i, he came later. Shaykh Muhammad Nasir ad-Din, they say that he hasn't seen with his eyes somebody like him. You know, the person, when he sees somebody like him in knowledge, he hasn't seen, the Shaykh, he did not say that, but the scholars, they say that he hasn't seen with his eyes somebody like him. Rahmatullahi alayhi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him for the hadith. And he was born 1333. And of course, you don't know what is 1333 until we give you the Christian date. Unfortunately, if the Shaykh was to be alive now, he'd tell me off, don't give the Christian date. He's very, very strict on this. Very strict. He will never allow the Christian date to be used. And that's why he was Salafi to the bone. rahimahullah. 1914, just for you to understand, 1914, if he's to be alive, how old would he be now? 102 years old. 102. If he used to be alive. Right. But actually, 102 in the Christian solar system. But in the lunar system, you're going to add to that 3.5 years. Because every 33 years, there will be what? 1 year extra. He was born in the city of Ashkodra, the capital of Albania. And he was from a poor family, religious, poor family, known to be scholars. So his father, he used to be a reference for the Hanafi madhab. People would come to him to learn, and he would guide them. He had migrated with his father to Damascus, in order to live there permanently. Why? Because of what happened in Albania by the king of it, Ahmad Zaho. What he did, he wanted the country to adopt the Western civilization, the Western values. He was on the same path as Kemal Atatürk of Turkey. Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, he finished his preparatory study, Al-Ibtidaiya, the first one, in a madrasa, school called Al-Is'af Al-Khayri in Damascus. And he was number one, even though he was not an Arab. Subhanallah, Sheikh Ibn remembers, he said that the teacher of the Arabic in the class, he would, he's got a mastija, a very long stick. He would, pull that child from very far to let him to read something or to write something. And then if he can't write it, he would say, if the Albani can write better than you, why you got an Arab you can't write like him? The Albani is a Sheikh himself. He's an Albanian. He's not even an Arab. Better than you. So he's all the time uses the Sheikh Al-Albani. Sheikh Al-Albani, and he says, of course it was not Sheikh, it was a kid. Al-Albani, the one from Albania, right? Better than you. You are from Damascus, you Shami, Suri. And because his father, he had an insight regarding those schools from the side of religion and RE, religious education, he decided that he should not continue with that. And Jazakallahu khair. Now we're talking about a person who's learning where? In Arab Muslim country. Yet he was not satisfied with the schooling, the Arab Muslim country. Yet we are satisfied with non-Arab, non-Muslim schools. So his father, he said, the religion there is not that much. But he used to teach a bit of Quran, a bit of Arabic, but nothing. So he took him and he made for him a manhaj, a syllabus, through which he made him to learn the Quran. And he finished the whole of the Quran in tajweed. So he recited in front of a teacher with tajweed. And he finished the Arabic grammar. And also he was put for him a plan, and he learned the fiqh, al-madhab al-Hanafi. So the Shaykh finished by his father, through his father, the recitation of the Quran from Hafs and Asim. Also, he had studied under the Shaykh Sa'id al-Burhani the book called Maraqi al-Falah, which is in the fiqh of the Hanafi, in which the Shaykh later on, when he becomes a Shaykh, he would criticize that book, of course. Maraqi al-Falah, and also so many books into the books of the language. And also he used to go to this classes of the Allama, the scholar Bahjat al-Baytan. He took from his father also the profession of fixing the watches, and he was good at it. And he started earning money from fixing the watches. And fixing the watches, at that time the watches, they were not digital, they were analog. All of them like, you know, like those thing that was a circle round thing that Truce has got. Colors, yes. You got one of them? Okay. They became expensive then. They became expensive then. And actually it had provided for him this profession, time to read. Because you do a little bit of work and you get money and they give you more time. And the Sheikh was not greedy. And when he went, of course, to Sham, Sham gave him the Arabic language, and also he gave him the treasure, which is Al-Maktab al-Zahiri. He was in the next to the Maktab al-Zahiriya, which is a library that had manuscripts so much. And we're going to come to talk about it in a minute, inshallah. Sheikh rahimahullah, he started directing himself to the knowledge of al-Hadith, despite that his father telling him, that is, to be on the madhab of the Hanafi, and warning him to preoccupy himself to learn the knowledge of Hadith. But the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh, was for that, and he was made for that. So he had learned the Hadith when he was about 20 years of age. And the first effect on the Shaykh's manhaj was from a magazine called Al-Manar, which Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida is the one who was in charge of it. And the first hadith treatise that he made, the Sheikh, and he written, which is that he had rewritten Al-Mughni an Hamd al-Asfar fi takhrij ma fi al-Ihya' min al-Akhbar for the Hafiz al-Iraqi, and the elaboration upon it. And this was actually first work of hadith and masterpiece that the Sheikh had done, which was made him to be interested in the science of hadith. And he was known in the educated people, amongst the educated people, even after that he was to go to Maktab al-Zahiriya, that because he's gone so much there, they have designated for him a little room in order to do his researches. SubhanAllah. So imagine that you go to the public library, they see you all the time there, they give you a room. Why? Because they could see that you are something unique, special. Not only that, because he used to come earlier than the person who opens the library, they gave him a key. Imagine, public library, give you a key as well, to go on your own to open in the morning. So the Sheikh used to go before the librarian, the one who was a library keeper. As for writing books, he was already started that when he was in his 20s. And from the first that he has done, Tahdhir al-Sajid, من اتخاذ القبور مساجد. What a great book. Warning the one who is the prayer, the one who prays, from taking the graves as to be places for worship. And from the first books that he made, Takhrij hadith means checking upon the hadith. الرَّوْضُ النَّظِيرُ في ترتيب وتخريج معجم الطبراني الصغير. And because the Shaykh rahimahullah so much involved in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that was the big influence upon him to put him on the path, which is the path of the Salafi manhaj. And he was hooked onto it, and he used to read, of course, the book of Al-Imam, Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, and his student Ibn al-Qayyim. He read all their books and others from the people who are from the Madrasa al-Salafi. The Shaykh Al-Albani took the standard of monotheism, Tawheed and Sunnah in Syria. At that time, Sufis and Sufism, false creeds were prevalent at the time. Shaykh rahimahullah, he had paid a lot of visit to a lot of mashayikh in Dimashq, and he had debates with them and discussions around the issues of Tawheed and blind following. Because the Shaykh, he fought the blind following, and because of that, the Shaykh had so many enemies. And so many Sufi Pir Sabs, whatever you call them, they used to even tell the general public to go against him and to call him not just Wahhabi, Wahhabi Dal. That means deviant Wahhabi. And they used to warn people against him. So there's Wahhabi, who's already Wahhabi, for them is no good. But deviant Wahhabi is extra. And in that time as well, they used to make and warn all the scholars who comes against it. The Shaykh, but being encouraged to be on this path, especially by the Allama Bahjat al-Baytar, and also Shaykh Abdul Fattah al-Imam, who were the head of the Jam'iyyat al-Shubban al-Muslimin, and others from the Shuyukh, like Shaykh Tawfiq al-Bazra, and others as well. Shaykh Al-Albani's da'wah, rahimahullah, he used to make classes twice a week. Students used to come, even there used to be professors and doctors from the university to come to his class. Yet he was a person, according to the academy ladder, he hasn't climbed anything. Academy ladder, he's still in the preparatory. Hasn't even gone to he's in the elementary. He hasn't got to the elementary. He hasn't got to the secondary school, he hasn't got to university, nothing. So all these teachers of universities, they come to learn from the Shaykh, who's the watch repairer. From the books that he taught, Fath al-Majid, which is for Kitab al-Tawheed, also Al-Rawda al-Nadiyya, Al-Shawkani, and Fiqh al-Sunnah, Sayyid Sabiq, Al-Ba'ith al-Hathith, Ibn Kathir, Usul al-Fiqh, Abdul Wahab Khallaf, and all these books, we studied them with our Shaykh, Hafidhahumullah, Minhaj al-Islam fi al-Hukm. Also, all of those books, Shaykh had taught them. And in terms of his travel and journeys, he used to have a monthly journeys. It started with 1 week, or every month, then after that it increased. So he went to all the areas in Syria, and also the areas in Jordan. And as before, he settled there after that in Jordan. And that is why some of those people who disliked the Shaykh and envied the Shaykh, they started telling the leaders and the rulers that this person trying to make a coup against you. Because of that, the Shaykh was imprisoned. And the Shaykh, rahimahullah, he was patient. In the early of the 1960s, and I apologize, I'm going to mention the Christian dates. In the early of the 1960s, the Shaykh, he was being watched and under surveillance from the government of Syria, even though they know for a fact that he is too far from politics. He's not even involved in politics. But that was an obstacle and was a hindrance for him as well from the da'wah. So he was imprisoned twice. First one, it was just about before the 1967, when he was imprisoned for 1 month in the same prison which Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned into, which is the prison of Al-Qal'a, the fortress. Same prison. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned for it, and actually Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah was imprisoned for the same maybe as well reason, because the Sufi at that time who done this. But when the war in 1967 took place between the Arabs and the Israelis, the government thought that they will free all the political prisoners. Then later on, after that, the Shaykh, rahimahullah, being returned to be imprisoned again, but not in the Qal'a, prison of the fortress, but actually in the prison of Al-Hasaka, which was in the northern eastern side of Dimashq. He stayed there for 8 months, and in those 8 months the Shaykh had asked his son to bring him the Sahih Muslim and Al-Mundhiri, and he made the checking there, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, in that prison in those 8 months. As for his books and what he has done, so many. First of all, he used to go, as I said, to the Sheikh Muhammad Mahdi al-Bitar classes. The Sharia Kulliya, which is the Sharia faculty in the Damascus University, chose him to make takhrij and check-in upon the ahadith of the chapter of Buyu' sale in the Mawsu'ah of al-Fiqh al-Islami, which he wanted, or they intended to do it and put it for the people, 1955. I'm not going to mention how many things that he's done, it's going to be too much, so I'm going to mention a bit of that. Actually, the Jamia Salafiyya in India asked him to head the Jamia in Harith, but Shaykh refused because there was difficulty, and also there was a war between India and Pakistan at that time. He had traveled to see Spain, and he came to England as well. And he was hosted by a family called the family of Barakah, Pakistani family. And the Sheikh, he saw even the abattoirs, how they slaughtered the animals in this country. I can't remember the city. But anyway, the Sheikh, as I said, he had met a number of European countries he visited. He visited as well Kuwait and Emirates. Now the Sheikh, he has so many books. So many. So many of them, they were translated into so many languages. The greatest of all books, this is the one. Sifat Salat al-Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the revolutionary book at that time. But the Shaykh, of course, they've done after that, the main two books are Silsila al-Sahiha or Silsila al-Da'ifa, and Irwa al-Gharib. Silsila al-Sahiha or Silsila al-Da'ifa, many volumes there are, which he had checked the ahadith, he made a hadith, and he reached the 7th volume, which makes it about more than 3,000, almost 500 hadiths, which he checked the Shaykh to be sahih. And as in for the Da'ifa, more than 13 volumes, makes it every volume 500. That's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, more than almost 7,000 hadith, which are Da'if. Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi also finally had received in 1999, very recently, the Ja'iza of King Faisal, which is the reward of King Faisal for Dirasat al-Islamiyya. And he's been given that Shaykh, and he did not go there, of course, because he was old. And the Shaykh, he was not really in need of that Ja'iza, the reward, but actually it is good because those are the ones who are never been happy with the Shaykh. They were dying out of rage because of it. Shaykh had so many scholars mentioning him in a good way, praising him. Start with Shaykh ibn Baz. Shaykh ibn Baz, he said, I've never seen anyone underneath the heavens, that means underneath the skies, more knowledgeable in the hadith than the Allama, he says, Muhammad Nasir al-Albani. And the Shaykh, rahimahullah, even he's made a lecture about that. He said, I myself benefit from his books. So the Shaykh, one day, he was asked, Ibn Baz, regarding the hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ لِهَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ عَلَى رَأْسِ كُلِّ مِئَةِ سَنَةٍ مَنْ يُجَدِّدُ لَهَا دِينَهَا. That Allah would send for this ummah at the beginning of every century a person who will revive for them their religion. So he was asked about the reviver of this century. So he said, Shaykh Muhammad Nasir al-Albani. That's it. He said, he's the one I think and I believe he's the one that the Prophet meant in this century. Al-Allama Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he's younger, he was, you could say, a student of Shaykh Ibn Baz, but he, rahmatullahi alayhi, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, when he had heard that the Shaykh Al-Albani put in his wasiyah that if he dies, his death, his burial, not to be delayed more than just to read his will. So the time-wise, do you understand what I'm talking about? When he died, to be buried straight away between his death and his burial, not to be more or longer than reading his what? The will. And it was done. And the Shaykh Al-Albani said, Rahimallah, Shaykh Al-Albani. He taught them the Sunnah when he was alive, and also taught them the Sunnah when he died. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he said number of things. I'm not as well, just to make it a very short biography. Al-Allama Al-Mufassir Muhammad Al-Amin Al-Shinqiti, Sahib Adwa Al-Bayan, rahmatullah, the one who made the great tafsir of book, the Quran, Adwa Al-Bayan. See, Shaykh Al-Shinqiti, he used to, every time, because he used to teach in the same University of Medina in Medina, the Medina of the Prophet ﷺ. Every time the Shaykh Al-Shinqiti is teaching his class, when he sees the Shaykh Al-Albani passes, he stops his class out of reverence. Subhanallah. He will straight away go to the Shaykh and shake his hand, stop his class. And the Shaykh Al-Shinqiti is known to be not just knowing the Quran in his eyes, but also the tafsir of the Quran. And that's why the Shaykh Al-Albani used to say about the Shinqiti, كَأَنَّ الْقُرْآنَ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. The Quran is like in between his eyes. You know, the Quran is in his eyes. What time is the prayer? Right. Finally, Sheikh Muqbil, one of his students in the university, he said, I testify before Allah Azza wa Jalla that the Shaykh Al-Albani is the mujaddid of the, or one of the mujaddideen of this revivals of the religion. And the Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullah alayh, he had his farewell advice. He put it in his will, and that will, inshallah, if we have time to talk about it, not this week, but next week, inshallah. Shaykh Al-Albani died on the Saturday, and he died in the year 1420, which was 1999, and the month was October. He was buried after Salat al-Isha, and the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi was buried quickly. I happened to see his burial when I was there, and subhanallah, Sunnah was applied to the letter. Right, so let's just stop here, because as I said, the prayer, and bi-idhnillah, we will go into the book next week, and inshallah, there's no questions, and the prayer inshallah, and we go home. Jazakumullah khairan, subhanakallah wa bihamdik.